What's up, Cerebral Football fans? My name is Steven Hyder. This is Gate City Sports Channel. And yeah, it looks like we got a few things to talk about, right? As we kick off basically this beginning period of the legal tampering, kind of period for NFL free agency. And I've noticed some of the, things that have come across Twitter, X, whatever they want to call it now. I've saw some of the things pop up on other people's, live streams and things that they've been covering. And it's a little interesting to me to see some people's reactions because if you understood how the organization was going to build the team, this should have been quite obvious, to be quite honest. Like, I don't know what people were expecting from day one outside of maybe a restructuring or re-signing somewhere. I don't think they were going to dive into free agency and start pulling free agents because you have to understand the structure of what they're trying to do. And I think that's an important lesson for everyone to learn to begin with, which is how the NFL compensatory pick, kind of status works within the league. And the first thing you got to know is that everything that happens in week one matters, right? So when Milton Williams signs that big deal, that matters for the Eagles, okay? When Josh Sweat signed his big deal, that mattered for the Eagles. Even when Isaiah Rodgers got picked up, that mattered for the Eagles. And that's the compensatory pick game. And that's what's going to happen through week one of NFL free agency. Simply put, if you lose more players than you're awarded in week one through free agency, you're going to get compensatory picks to apply towards the subsequent draft. So essentially right now, the models that I've saw is the Eagles have warranted or have landed 2 4th-round compensatory picks and a 6th-round compensatory pick. They're going to get cheap, guys. They're going to get cheaper at certain positions. And they're also going to basically really be adamant about getting younger guys into the lineup and getting them to play. And I think people are kind of missing the forest for the trees a little bit. Like, I really do. I think you have to understand that while Howie Roseman is really, really good at doing things, like Howie Roseman, you can't put everybody under contract. You still have to put some people under contract somehow. And I think right now, what you're going to see is that subtle period of rebuilding things. And as we're doing this just popped up, which is CJ Gardner-Johnson was just traded to the Texans. Antonio, from what I can see, that is a true statement. He was literally just traded as we were kind of talking here. And I think that's important to start right here because I started off by talking about what happens in the first week of free agency. Mind you, this has nothing to do with compensatory picks. I would even argue probably not the move I would have made personally. I like CJ Gardner-Johnson. I think having that kind of guy in your locker room is very, very important personally. I think you need to have the fire starter. So someone has to fill that role. But yes, from what I can see, CJ Gardner-Johnson was actually just traded to the Houston Texans. That's what is being reported online, guys. If you want me to share, I can share a screen for you so you guys can see that. Hey, I just literally came on and then this happened. So it is what it is, guys. Don't get mad at me. I ain't got nothing to do with this. But yes, if you look down here, guys, I'll go ahead and scroll for you. Trade. The Texans are sending guard Kenyon Green to the Eagles in exchange for defensive back Chauncey Gardner-Johnson per sources. All right, so right away, the Mekhi Becton thing ain't looking good. Right from the jump, guys, it's not looking good. Kenyon Green is a Mekhi Becton-esque body type. Some of you guys remember Kenyon Green. I believe he was from Florida. Let me look it up for you guys. Kenyon Green, I believe, was from Florida. He was a guard. Let me do combine results for you guys. He was a guard back a couple of years ago that some of you guys in the community, some of y'all were really, really high on him. So Texas A&M, guys, not Florida, Texas A&M. But another bigger guy. Here, I'll pull this up for you guys so you guys can see some of the information on him. I'll share the screen with you. So let me stop that share and go to my presentation and share another screen for you. All right. These are the combine results. Let me go ahead and pull down the ad. All right. So you got, essentially a 6'3", 6'4", 320 plus. I think that 320 is being a little kind to him. If I'm being real about it, guys, he's a little bigger than that. 34-inch in the arm reach, 10.38-inch hand reach, 83.375-inch wingspan. It's a bigger guy. All right. 5'2", 440 with a 1.76-10 split, 20 reps on the bench. No, some of this stuff, it's not pertinent, guys. He's a bigger, stronger guy that basically gives you a little bit in terms of physicality at the guard position. This is not a Brandon Brooks type. Let's go to a scouting report. I think a scouting report will probably be a little helpful right now, guys. We'll go down, get Lance Zierlein scouting report on him.
2022 NFL Draft. The Houston Texans select Kenyon Green.
Dude, what?
Guard, Texas A&M.
Sorry, they want me to mute it. Green was a 5-year offensive tackle recruit. You can see that arm size, 34-inch arm reach, 83-inch wingspan. Makes sense that he played some tackle. Out of Humble, Texas, where he was named the 2018 Houston Touchdown Club Offensive Player of the Year as a senior. Interesting that he came out of Houston, played for the Houston Texans. I'm curious how well he knows the Hurts family. You know, I'm pretty sure he probably knows Coach Hurts down in that way, since he's playing in the same area. Probably knows Jalen. He started all 13 games his first year with the Aggies at right guard. However, playing well enough to make the SEC all-freshman team, Green moved to left guard for 2020, starting all 10 games, and received second-team All-Associated Press All-American and second-team All-SEC accolades. Green was also finalist for the Lombardi Award as the nation's top O-lineman. The team could not play in the Tax Slayer Gator Bowl, however, due to that thing that happened
at this point. And before you make
sorry guys, it's trying to pop up everywhere on me here. All right, let's look at Lance Zierlein, what he had to say here. All right, Lance Zierlein had him as a first-round grade, gave him the Richie Incognito comp. Guard prospect with NFL-ready frame who plays with an impressive level of consistency as a run blocker. Green moves defenders from point A to point B against their will. That's what I was saying earlier, guys. He's a grader. They call it a road grader. Using hand technique and road grading leg drive. That's kind of funny that literally says it right after I said that. He processes adequate foot quickness to operate in a variety of run schemes, but needs to eliminate his tendency to grab when his opponent is slipping away from the block. A lot of young guys, by the way, on the interior tend to have that problem. He has pop and anchor in pass protection, but lacks recognition and mirror technique needed to be at his best against athletic interior rushers. I think basically what they're saying here is when teams are running gains on the inside and they're doing like T over E or E over T stunts, like he's got to be better at the recognition there. While Green has some areas to improve, his run blocking can be dominant, which gives him a chance to become a good starter very quickly. Broad frame with good thickness from waist to ankles. That's weird. Well schooled on leverage and hand placement and run game. Bulldozing, driving blocker with horsepower to consistently clear pass. Impressive hand resets. Help to reestablish and finish the block. Base and power make wall-off blocks impenetrable. Adequate patience and body control to connect on the second level. Pass punch is direct and forceful. Improved anchor over the years. Adequate recovery potential when needed. Booming upper body strength with a strength to cave in an A-gap blitzer. Feast on slabs of ribs when helping in protection. Weaknesses. Has a history of opting in on holding penalties. Enters lateral blocks. Fits before finding positioning. Struggle with block sustain and loss to Mississippi State. Requires better feel for best angles as an inside zone blocker. That's going to be a little bit of a big deal just because we are an inside zone team and gap team in particular. It's kind of the run scheme we run. Below average instincts in pass protection. Slow to active lateral slide when mirroring. New Mexico twist game gave him trouble. I was talking about earlier some of the things they were saying. I was telling you guys that when you see teams run gains, you see teams run T over E or E over T stunts. If you got teams that are coming up and playing around in terms of like simulated blitzes or where the pressure's coming, being able to read that, a lot of guys early on they do seem to struggle with that, to be honest. I'll be honest, this is straight up, that's a Mekhi Becton replacement. That's what it feels like to me. I mean, you're literally just describing Mekhi Becton. Big physical presence who's a road grader in the run game who needs to get better in pass protection. You know, that was Mekhi Becton moving from tackle to guard. The argument I gave people when they asked me if I thought Mekhi Becton could return, I said it was kind of 50-50, and I would lean towards I would want him to return personally. I said is that he was terrible in pass protection. He was. Like, I'm not gonna lie, guys. Mekhi Becton was not good this past year in pass protection. He was a problem. But I also said you're taking a guy who's playing on an island and making him play in a phone booth where the protections are different. And he's got to learn the calls. He's got to learn the schemes. He's got a first-time quarterback doing it. He's got a center who has a couple years experience in college, but is not overly proficient, if you will. Like, I thought there was room to let Mekhi Becton to grow into that, but I also wasn't going to lie. Like, simply put, the film was not good in pass protection with Mekhi Becton, but it was outstanding in the run game. They want to go get that force player. They want that force guy. They want a guy that's going to move people off the ball. That's what he is. I hate to see that it's CJ Gardner-Johnson that is the value we had to give up to get that guy. That kind of sucks a little bit, I'm not going to lie, because I still think it's very important to have that fire starter on defense. You got to have that guy that can just, you saw what happened, man. With that said, that's the news. That just happened. Nothing I can do about it, guys. I have nothing to do with this. I was very well aware that they wanted a force impact player on the right guard side. Coming from the same way that we signed Brandon Brooks off the Texans, back in the day. Now we're dipping back into the well through a trade this time to pull from the Texans to get Kenyon Green. I don't think this is the type of athlete, to be fair, physical. He's just as physical as a Brandon Brooks. He's just as physical as Mekhi. He's physical. This is a very physical offensive guard. I don't think he's the athlete that Brandon Brooks was. Brandon Brooks was like Superman almost. Like that dude was still one of my favorite players that most people don't talk about. You guys have followed me for a while, know that I was kind of a Brandon Brooks stan. So you're probably no surprise to you to hear me talking him up a little bit. I still think he was a class act all the way down to when he left the organization. So now we got another guy kind of coming in. Only time will tell. With that said, guys, I want to talk about a very important topic now. We got to flip the switch now. We got to flip the gears. We got to talk about essentially what this secondary looks like. I knew it was going to be young. It's going to be really young now because we just traded probably the veteran guy in the room. Straightforward. We traded the veteran guy that was in the room. It is what it is. We're going to be young. Let's get into it. Y'all ready? 2024 with the 22nd pick, the Philadelphia Eagles took Quinyon Mitchell. If you ask me if I would do something different, in the secondary, I think Quinyon is not a boundary corner. He played it spectacularly. I think his body and his makeup is a field corner, like Darius Slay. I think he's got that kind of movement ability. Okay. You can make the argument, Gate, like, yeah, Gate, you're probably right, but like, why mess around with that? Like, he's already playing at a high level over there. Like, don't do that. You know what I mean? Don't do that. Let him play there. And that's fine, guys. I'm not saying that my way is the only way forward. I'm just saying that I do think that Quinyon makes more sense to me as a field corner. And if you're going to play the young man, Cooper DeJean, the 40th pick in the 2024 NFL draft, if you're going to play him outside, I do think that he's a better fit on the boundary, although he did play a lot more at Iowa, to be fair, on the field side. The thing about, like, when I look at this situation, like with Cooper DeJean, is that everything that people say about essentially Kelee Ringo, the things you hear about Kelee Ringo, when they say like, oh, Kelee, the thing with Kelee is like, he's very athletic. He's very physically gifted, but he's tall and he's big, and physics matter. And when you're tall and you're a bigger guy as a corner, when I say a bigger guy, he's thin compared to you get what I'm saying, guys. But for a defensive back, he's bigger, right? You don't tend to flip your hips in the most fluid fashion. You tend to be what they say to be a little sticky in your hips. Okay. They tend to say like there's a little rust there. Same thing was said about Cooper DeJean. I broke that down last year for you guys when I did the draft profile on him. And I said, that is something that is said, but I thought that Cooper DeJean was a very high IQ player. And I thought that he made up for that sometimes by just really understanding the route concept and how to undercut it. And there was like a really famous one where I showed you guys where he picked the ball off to where he got shook on basically it was a whip route kind of concept. And he got shook for a second, but he had the football IQ to get under the route and take the ball away. So like, I would probably play Quinyon personally towards that side. And then if I'm going to play Kelee Ringo, like in all my sub-base stuff, I'd probably put Kelee over on the boundary personally. Or if I'm going to play Cooper DeJean in base and then kick him inside when they go into, sub packages, that's how I would put those two guys on the boundary personally. I don't know how the Eagles are going to do it, guys. I mean, it's not my say, but it is what it is, right? The next guy who's going to have an expanded role, not in the way I was envisioning it, by the way, when I started this video. They spent the 66th pick in the 2023 NFL draft on Sidney Brown. That's a high pick, guys. That is just outside the second round. Come on now, like that's a very important evaluation. A part of this situation to talk about here is that Sidney Brown was drafted quite high in that draft. Okay. He was robbed of because of an ACL injury. We lost the opportunity to fully see him implement it into Vic Fangio's scheme. Sidney Brown, I originally saw him as, this is a guy that has safety into nickel versatility. safety into the nickelback versatility, right? If you want to play +1 in the box and you want to have an enforcer, if Cooper DeJean's not the guy that's going to do that for you, my argument was Sidney Brown, boy, he's got the fire, man. He's got the tenacity. If anything, you got to reel him back a little bit. Like, yo, Sidney, under control with it. You got to be under control with this. You can't be out of control doing it. Like, Sidney Brown is that type of guy. And I was going to say, like, he's got a lot to learn. He's got to learn how to play through traffic. He got a freshman or rookie year. He did play some snaps down in the slot. He's got to learn how to play through traffic, and his eyes got to be true to zone. My thing was just like, if you trust Vic Fangio, you trust Christian Parker, you trust Joe Casper, which are the main pieces to that, of coaching that together, then yeah, like Sidney Brown would make sense. But now with dealing CJ Gardner-Johnson, Sidney Brown might be a major impact player in terms of like what they're going to do in the secondary in terms of the safety room. So still may contribute at times to covering out of the slot, out of the nickel, but that's probably not going to be his main spot now, given what we know, right? 2023, 105th overall pick. Keep in mind, 4th round pick, but a pick that we traded up and leveraged 3rd round picks to go get. Kelee Ringo, my bad, guys. Kelee Ringo. The youth movement is now. Whether we want it to be or not, it is now. 2024's 22nd over pick, 2024's 40th over pick, 2023's 66th overall pick, and 2023's 105th overall pick. They're going to have roles. There's no doubt about that. I don't know if we can pencil every one of those guys in as starters. You know, little hesitant. You got to go earn the job, young man. But you clearly can see what they're trying to do. The division's quite obvious, right? 2022 undrafted free agent, Reed Blankenship. Right? 2022 number 32 overall draft pick. And 2024 signee of the Philadelphia Eagles, Lewis Cine, Georgia Bulldog. I don't know. I would probably put him in other names category as well, but I do think hey, I mean, the talent was there. Another guy that, by the way, can be a little bit forceful in the box. He can be a force in the box. They're going to need to have some answers here. And I'm going to talk about another guy who was a 2024 undrafted free agent. This is a guy that I personally am pretty high on, and I want to see him in an expanded role. I would love to see him as a third safety kind of type. Andre Sam. Andre Sam's going to be an interesting one. He's going to be one to watch, guys. Sorry, guys. I still got a cold I'm dealing with. Tristan McCollum, young man that was originally an undrafted free agent of the Houston Texans. In 2023, he got picked up by the Eagles and signed to a futures contract. They stuck around the practice squad in 23 and then actually was on the roster for, I think, pretty much the entire season in 24 as that kind of third, fourth safety. He's a guy that they like and they keep developing. I would kind of like to see Andre Sam and Lewis Cine get in the competition with Tristan McCollum. I don't think that we should be locking that in per se, guys, but you can see the Eagles knew this moment was coming and they were backpiling things. If you looked at the back end of the roster, they were backpiling, to be quite honest. So you could see that they were backpiling with the Tristan McCollum. Now, Tristan McCollum predated anything that happened this year. That was in 23. So he was already kind of there with the whole uncertainty with already losing CJ Gardner-Johnson. Kind of ideal there. Andre Sam was brought in this past year. Lewis Cine was brought in this past year. You can see they were backpiling there, right? They're backpiling because no matter what you go here, no matter what you do, you guys got to remember, you still got to fill out the roster. Not every player is going to be a superstar, guys. You got to have guys that can step in and play if you need them to play, but can be impactful special teams players in the meantime. You got to fill out a special teams roster. And if you're going to elevate guys like Sidney Brown, if you're going to elevate guys like Kelee Ringo, those guys are going to have elevated roles. It's probably fair to question if you want them playing gunner and stuff like that, right? We're losing our crap over Cooper DeJean potentially getting injured playing punt returner. At some point in time, you're going to need some of that younger blood behind them that's playing in those reserve roles. You know, think of like, Lewis Cine, the Tristan McCollum, and Eli Ricks, Tariq Castro Fields, Perry Nicholson, A.J. Woods, another safety to nickel type player, A.J. Woods, that was picked up last year. You're going to need those guys to fill out the roster a little bit. You got to have those guys, man. Those guys are very important. This roster is very young. It's athletic as crap. Say what you want. I can tell you right now that Quinyon Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Sidney Brown, Kelee Ringo, Reed Blankenship is a 5. It's athletic. I would still personally would have rather had CJ Gardner-Johnson. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that. I was a huge fan of CJ Gardner-Johnson. I do think that fire starter is important to a defense. But I'm also not going to act like this is not a super athletically gifted secondary. And the thing is, guys, is no matter how we feel, when you spend this kind of draft capital on players, at some point, Matt, you got to stop with these nonsense comments, bro. I'll smoke you. You don't want to play with me like that. I promise you, you don't want the kind of heat I can bring. Saying that they're in the NFL, they're all athletic. There's still levels, dude. Stop. These guys are gifted. These guys are definitely movers. These guys are physical. This is a more physical lineup. Cooper DeJean, Sidney Brown, Kaylee Ringo, like super, super physically gifted. Super physically gifted. Like, these dudes are really gifted in terms of the physical movements. These guys are very physical players. They're young. And look, you guys know me that have been following me for a while. You know how long I coached. You know what I've said about the Vic Fangio scheme. I love Vic Fangio as a coach. I hate his freaking scheme. Now, nothing to do with whether I think Vic Fangio can make that scheme effective. He just won a Super Bowl with it, and the defense was the forefront of it, right? So, like, it's not a question if the scheme can work. I'm just telling you from a coaching perspective, I've had 2 opportunities to run something that was built, a 2-high structure that was built and modeled after somewhat of what Vic Fangio and Nick Saban and these dudes were doing, right? Kirby Smart, all these guys, Jeremy Pruitt, these guys that kind of run variations of things, right? And I can tell you, when you run this Fangio-esque schemes, it's really difficult to translate that and coach that to players. I'm going to say something that 32 NFL defensive coordinators would agree with, because you want to out-athlete people. I would much rather out-athlete a team and play man for the majority of my snaps than try to translate and explain to kids how you play the match carry stuff. That match carry stuff is really difficult to teach. It's incredibly difficult to teach that stuff. And we're going to really see, like, a guy who is, like, don't get me wrong, guys. I know I'm humble about things, but I know I'm a really good coach. Okay? The thing is, you could be really good. You could be excellent. You better be God tier. I'm talking Vic Fangio God tier to be able to do this thing effectively. It is tough to transmit that scheme. And right now you have Vic Fangio, who I hold in very high regards, who is going to have a task put in front of him, man. There's going to be a task put in front of him, man. With Quinyon Mitchell, who, Cooper DeJean, who already have experience playing in the scheme. But now you got Sidney Brown that you got to bring along. You got Kaylee Ringo you got to bring along. And now you got these young guys on the back end of the roster that you took gambles on. These are gambles. Athletically gifted dudes that you gambled on, right? The Lewis Scenes, the Andre Sams, the Tristan McCollums, the Eli Rickses. I don't know if Tariq Castro Fields is going to have a role here. I think they're somewhat trying to figure out what they're going to do at the nickel spot. I think that's why you got like a Tariq Castro Fields, a Perry Nickerson, an AJ Woods. I think that's why you got those type of guys. I think ideally you want Eli Ricks to play outside, not inside. I don't think he's built that way. Personally, I think his length gave some teams some problems. I think if you have a taller slot receiver, then a guy like Eli Ricks can give you some problems, to be honest. But mostly you want guys who can work through the mud, who can work through the traffic, all the gunk on the inside well. You want guys who can communicate well from that position. And me personally, why I think that a guy like Cooper DeJean is so freaking good as a nickel, he's a +1. He's a +1 in the run game. He's an impact player there. And I think those are really difficult to find. I put out a tweet earlier today. If you guys are on X, I put out a tweet earlier today where I was talking about a player that crossed my radar and I've been watching film on. And it's Kansas State's defensive back, Jacob Parrish. Put up really, really impressive combine times. Jacob Parrish did. I mean, he put up some really, really impressive combine times. He's a 4.3 speed guy, 4.35-ish in speed, 1.5, 1.10 split guy. Definitely a coverage guy. He's got experience working through the muck. He reminds me a little bit of Isaiah Rodgers, to where Isaiah Rodgers originally, when he was coming out, was viewed more so as being a nickel guy. When he got to the league, for whatever reasons, when he landed with the Colts, they started to play him outside as the third, kind of that third, the break in case of emergency corner for the Colts. And he never really played a ton of snaps as a nickel. Like, I think he played less than 20 snaps, guys, total in the league. That's a guy, like, when you look at Parrish, he's very similar to Isaiah Rodgers that way, where he has all the twitch, all the movement ability to, I think, be very effective in a coverage standpoint from the nickel. I do worry about him as a +1 defender. I'm not saying that guys that are 5'9", 5'10", sub 200 pounds can't come up and play the run. I'm just saying that everything I just described was Avonte Maddox, an outside corner in college that was being looked upon to be an inside guy in the pros, got into the pros, played inside, played safety, played outside, was a super versatile player, was never scared to tackle, and probably to his detriment, took one too many shots, took one too many injuries, and it kind of eroded his career over time, guys. So I do worry, like as a +1 defender with Parrish, I do worry about that. But I will say that from a coverage standpoint, when I was watching his tape, I was like, oh man, like dude he's got the fluid movement. Dude's twitched up. Yeah, he's an interesting guy. And the Eagles, they're in an interesting part here, right? Because like, what do? Do you go young in free agency? Do you go get a Christian Fulton? Do you want Christian Fulton? You want a guy like that you can bring in who had a terrible go at it, but was probably in the wrong scheme, to be quite honest. Sorry, guys. This cold is annoying. And you think he's a better scheme fit for the Eagles, right? You got Asante Samuel Jr., who, I mean, yeah, he could play that one. He's not going to be – I worry about him in the low zone, Asante Samuel Jr., just because he's not a physically imposing player. The low zone on those screen passes and the bubble screens and stuff, it's going to be a little bit of concern with him. Still a guy that if you put the ball in the air, he can read your eyes. You know, he can read the quarterback. He could definitely make a play on it. Like, they're kind of in this situation where they're not going to probably do much in week 1. And I know this is going to tick a lot of people off, okay? Week 1 so far has mostly been trades and trade rumors, right? Looking for a shopping partner for Dallas Goedert, potentially. Just trading C.J. Gardner-Johnson, right? Trading Kenny Pickett yesterday. Like, it hasn't been what we're looking for, right? There's a lot of guys were hoping that they would do things like, make moves in this free agency period. And they did, to be fair. I mean, they're swapping players, they let C.J. Gardner-Johnson go because I think they feel that, look, at some point, Sidney Brown's got to play. At some point, these young guys have got to step up and make plays. I still think it was a mistake. I think C.J. Gardner-Johnson's just too important to the defense as the fire starter. But it is what it is, guys. I'm not going to sit here and act like Kenyon Green as a right guard won't be a pretty good pickup. It is a fairly good pickup. Like I said, guys, I just hate that it came at the expense of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I'm a little bit of a fan of C.J. Gardner-Johnson. When I look at this team, it's being reconstructed, guys. So week 1, probably not going to get a lot of signings. I'm not going to say they won't sign anybody. But I don't think you're going to get a ton of signings just because of the compensation pick game. They want to play that compensatory pick game. All right. That's how I think they want to structure this offense and this defense over the next few years because, they got star players already. So the only way to really get themselves around this, essentially, guys, is to basically pay their own guys and then build youth behind it. We're in a good spot, guys. You win Super Bowls. Everybody wants your players. You want to retain your players, and you got to find ways of getting cheap, youthful, but still talented behind. And that's going to be the challenge, man, is the back end of the roster is going to be forming the back end of the roster, right? As important as I think it will be to how they play the nickel spot, and we had a long discussion about that, guys, where we talked about the youth and like the guys, the bodies they have on this team. AJ Woods, a safety into the nickel type player. Perry Nickerson, more of a nickel type player. Tariq Castro Fields, I think, is one of those guys they view as more as an outside-inside versatility guy. Eli Ricks, a guy that I think they want to play him outside as one of the main backups. But, I mean, he's got experience playing in the nickel. I don't think he's a natural mover there. They're going to have some decisions to make, right? Then you got these young guys, since C.J. Gardner-Johnson just got traded. You got these young guys, right? The Lewis Scenes, the Andre Sams, the Tristan McCollums, right? The Sidney Browns. They're going to have to step up and play these big roles in the secondary. We're young. We're athletic. I guess they're going to bank on the fact that, look, these guys didn't just play a rookie year. They played a Super Bowl their rookie year. So these dudes aren't inexperienced at this point. So even though they're young, Mitchell and DeJean, they've already been to the prize. Reed Blankenship, he's young. But even Reed's not as young as people think, right? Reed played a long time, at Middle Tennessee State. He suffered a few injuries in college, guys. He was an older prospect, went undrafted. And, a few of you guys actually put me on to him. I started watching his tape, and I was like, man, I do remember this young man from, years ago. But I didn't realize he was still playing. He had suffered a couple, knee injuries and stuff in college. Or it's like a shoulder and a knee, something like that happened to him that basically made him an older prospect coming out, which kind of worked in our favor because one place where older prospects make sense is when you're coming out and you're dealing with that situation. Like that's where those type of prospects do make sense, where you're looking at those, shaping those roster spots like that. That's where, when you need those immediate contributors, if you will, even as like, a main backup, that's where older prospects, I can see where there's some tangibility to wanting those type of players in your scheme and in your system. All right, guys. I'm curious, out of the names you guys see here, right? We know Quinyon, we know Cooper, we know Sidney Brown, we know Kaylee Ringo, we know Reed Blankenshot. We know those 5 guys in particular. I'm not saying they'll all be starters, right? I think you can make some arguments around Kaylee Ringo. You can make some arguments around Sidney Brown and say that's a wait and see situation, Steve. Those guys got to earn their spots, but they're going to have big roles. I mean, that's an expanded role. There's no doubt about that. So outside of those 5 guys, the Lewis Scenes, the Andre Sams, the Tristan McCollums, the Eli Ricks, the 3 Castro Fields, the Perry Nickersons, the AJ Woods. Who's the guy you're waiting to see actually touch the field and see if it's there? Who's 1 or 2 of the guys that you say, like, you know what, Gate, I don't know if they can play yet, but I want to see this dude hit the field and I want to see if he's got it. All right, guys, let's get to some comments, man. I know I'm a little overdue on the comments here. Let me see if I can't find the scroll up button. Sorry. On Macs, it's a little difficult to like scroll compared to Windows. There we go. I found it. Boom. All right, let's go all the way up to the top, guys. Sorry, guys. It's going to take me a second to get way up here. What's up? How's everybody doing? What's going on, guys? What's going on, guys? CJ Gardner-Johnson has been traded, guys. Yep. Yeah, sorry, Sean. Yeah, I liked him too, man. One of my favorite players on this team. It is what it is, man. It was for Kenyon Green. I don't know the whys, Dank, it's, I'm not in the front office, man. I know that they really wanted a right guard. I don't know. I really wish they would have kept CJ Gardner-Johnson personally. Yeah, Sean, I would say that it seems very unlikely that Becton's coming back. I'm assuming that Becton market is probably more expensive than they anticipated. Green is good, but why CJ? Yeah, it is what it is, guys. Guess Slay is back. I don't know, Dank. I mean, maybe he is. I'm not going to close the door completely there just because he has a close relationship with the organization, and he's not a free agent yet. At Wednesday, when the league calendar year begins, the Eagles can officially June 1st designate the cut, and he will be officially a free agent. So, I mean, they do still have today to kind of talk to him before he officially signs anything with the Steelers. So, yeah, I mean, that is true, Dank. That's true. I don't know if, like, I'm just not in the front office, Dank. I can't say what they're going to do, but, yeah. What the heck? Why is he gutting the defense? He wants it young, bro. They're going young, that's for sure. I think Howie's trying to move up in this year's draft with all these comp picks. Guys, I don't work in the front office, Messiah. I mean, we knew that they wanted a right guard. We know they wanted somebody that we knew that some of the things that in previous seasons the Eagles look for at the guard positions, we were being told to be careful that they learned something about plugging in Mekhi Becton, and they wanted a more physical presence. I'm guessing they wanted Becton back, just like they wanted Isaiah Rodgers back. But let's just talk about the Isaiah Rodgers thing while we're all talking about this, all right? If you guys want my perspective of what happened with Isaiah Rodgers, I don't think it had anything to do with the contract. I think the Eagles would have done the contract. I think it had to do with Isaiah Rodgers because I don't think the Eagles were willing to guarantee the spot. I think Isaiah Rodgers wanted more of a guarantee of a starting position. And I think the Eagles were more looking at it as like, no, like if Kaylee Ringo can't lock this thing down, then you're our guy. But like Kaylee Ringo is going to get an opportunity because of draft status, the fact that, he's been behind these guys learning. And I just think Isaiah Rodgers was like, yeah, I'm going to go sign here where there's a little bit more of a guarantee that I'm going to see the field. I think that was more of the thing that happened there, guys, to be quite honest. But we'll see. I mean, I was a little shocked by that one personally, too, because it did make sense to try to bring Isaiah Rodgers back. I also say Oren Burks made sense to bring back. But it clearly tells you that they must feel somewhat confident in what's going on with Nakobe Dean's recovery. I haven't heard crap on it. I don't know. I was under the impression that he would not be back by the start of the season. So they're either pretty confident in terms of like Nakobe Dean's recovery, and they must also subsequently be somewhat confident in what they got in Trot Jr. So, yeah, I mean, those two players in particular, I know that those are low key. You're like, hey, why are we focus on them? Because I do think that those back end roster guys, those main reserve guys, I think are more important than most people realize. CJ Gardner-Johnson sucks, guys. I didn't want to lose CJ either. Yeah, I mean, I know they wanted a right guard. I hate it was at the expense of CJ Gardner-Johnson as well. How he knew we would hate this. Yeah. I think it's definitely Sidney Brown time, Dank. Yeah, I think it's definitely part of it. Houston had one of the worst O-lines last season. Yeah, but you got to also remember they had a lot of injuries too. So, I mean, some of it had to do with their injuries. I don't care about a guard, bro. We could have developed one. Why did we trade CJ? Like I said, Messiah, I'm not in the front office, man. I can't, you know what I mean? Like, I know some of you guys think that I have intel that comes from Howie. I really don't know Howie. I've never ever had a conversation with Howie. I've had a conversation with other members of the coaching staff and stuff from time to time, but I ain't never ever had the opportunity to talk to Howie. I think what's more interesting is that they were willing to move off of CJ Gardner-Johnson to probably, in hindsight, probably to give Sidney Brown that chance. But yet let's just say this. It seems like we don't know the truth yet. I mean, for all we know, freaking Mekhi Becton's back at the end of the week. You know, I don't want to go too far. It seems like that we were moving off Mekhi Becton, right? Maybe Mekhi Becton is a larger play, a larger plan for them at right tackle. I don't know. Doesn't seem that way to me. It seems like they're moving in a different direction. Not opposite, but a different direction, right? It's interesting to me that was true, right? That they're going to play Sidney Brown, but the guy that was drafted one pick ahead of Sidney Brown, just one pick ahead of them, who they envision as being the right guard here, and Tyler Steen, it doesn't see. I'm not saying he don't have a shot. I'm not saying he can't compete for it. I'm not saying he can't beat out Kenyon Green. It would be a bad look if Tyler Steen beat out Kenyon Green, though, and we dealt CJ Gardner-Johnson in order to make the deal. So, I mean, we know they wanted that physical presence. I think you could say, like, I know some of you are going to say, like, Gate, I get that guy was a tackle in college. But if you watch his tape, you clearly know he was a road grader too. He was physical in the run game. And he was probably a slightly, not as physical as Mekhi Becton, but in the run game, but he was a better pass protector than Mekhi was in terms of the guards. It is interesting. I'm like, guys, I can't, it ain't my role. I don't work in the front office. I can only really analyze it and talk about it. Like, they seem to be giving Sidney Brown the opportunity, but like with the move to get Kenyon Green here, it's like they're kind of bypassing Tyler Steen. I think that's interesting. Perhaps I'm misreading the tea leaves. You know what I mean? But yeah. They just traded CJ. Yeah, guys. Yeah. Green Goblin said, how good is he? The thing with that is it's really hard to tell, Green Goblin, because like the unit around you matters. And if you got a subpar unit around you, even if you're really good, it's not going to fully show your talent. You know what I mean? Like that's going to be a part of it with Kenyon Green. What he is a road grader. He's physical in the run game. He's going to move people off the ball straightforward. That's what he is. He's still susceptible in pass protection. The same concerns we had about Mekhi Becton, the same concerns we have about Tyler Steen, we're going to have a Kenyon Green as well, like straightforward. Like, I'm not going to go down on, I'm not going to get too far down on Howie. Like, I wanted CJ Gardner-Johnson to be here, but like, I got to be realistic too, man. The dude has built 3 Super Bowl rosters in 7 years. He's won 2. You know what I mean? Like, you got to give him a little grace here, guys. I don't love it. Like I said, guys, I'm a little bit of a CJ Gardner-Johnson stan. I was hoping he was going to be a part of this secondary. It caught me off guard as I did this live stream because he was definitely going to be a part of the conversation. That he's a part of the conversation today, but in a much different way than I had planned. But yeah. How he's working. Yeah, and that's the thing is, like, I don't know how much Stout has to do with these decisions, guys. Like, I don't know how much Stout's weighing in on it. It's, obviously, guys, like, I'm not there and I'm not inside the office, so I can't completely say how much he has to do with some of these decisions, but he has to do something with some of the decisions, right? I mean, there's clearly some aspect to it. Wow, we just making holes all over the defense for our offense. Such neglect. Traded CJ. We're in trouble. Tell me how this makes us better. It's if Sidney Brown can get the job done, Antonio. They drafted these guys at some point. They got to play. I was thinking that they might try to move Sidney Brown more as the +1 in the nickel, Because if you're asking me who's the kind of fire starter from the nickel that could be not the eyes, not the intelligence per se, football intelligence of a Cooper DeJean, but has that fire starter, that +1 defender in the run game, that dude that can give you some of the elements that you were getting from Cooper DeJean in that role. I thought Sidney Brown made a lot of sense there. But I think their plan is clearly to play him over the top. They're getting young. It is what it is, guys. They're getting young. I'm not going to judge it yet, guys. I think we're being too premature to the judgment. Number one, the full plan hasn't been laid out yet. Like I said, guys, I hate CJ Gardner-Johnson is not a part of the plan. Even if we're successful, we hoist the second Lombardi in a row, or third in like 8 years, or third in 10 years, basically. It's still going to be a little bittersweet not to have CJ Gardner-Johnson here, just because I think he fit the culture so freaking well here. But I'm also going to give them the time to reveal the plan. Let's go. He's an Eagle. Thanks, CJ, for bringing another ring to Philly. Best of luck to him. What is Houston doing is the real question. Yeah, they're definitely trading off their offensive line. Tunzel, now Kenyon Green. They traded away 2 of their better players. Yeah, CJ Stroud might just die this cup. Okay, yeah. If anyone that really knows that team knows that Kenyon Green and Laramie Tunzel were 2 of their better players. Howie has been making cost-cutting moves in anticipation of signing these young players to extensions. Yeah, I mean, if there's any indicator of what Milton Williams just got paid, the contract, and mind you, Milton Williams, I think definitely got overpaid. I love Milton. Good luck to him. And that New England line is a good line. I'm not going to front. What they can do there in the interior D line with those 2 guys, it's going to be interesting. But if Milton got 26 AAV, I don't even want to put a number on what we're going to have to pay. We're going to have to pay a big, big number, bro. Like, it's going to be expensive. Kenyon Green is who they traded him for. I don't know if there's a pick along with that, guys. I didn't see that when I looked at it happened as we were on the stream, guys. Like, literally, as soon as we started the stream, it started to break on Twitter. It started to break across Google. So, as we started to stream it, it kind of popped up on us. So, what I saw looked like a player-for-player trade. We may find out in a few minutes that there could have been some kind of a compensation pick swap thing, too. I don't know. We'll find out later, guys. I'm not going to say we aren't going back to the Super Bowl. I will say repeating the Super Bowl is always tough. It's never going to be easy. But, I like CJ Gardner-Johnson. I hate that he's not here anymore. Like I said, I think he was a cultural fit for the city. I think he was the fire starter for the overall level of the defense. We saw when he exited the game against Washington what happened. But I'm also excited for Sidney Brown. I think Sidney Brown is a talented player. I do think that they, at some point, had to get him on the field somehow. And just like, I mean, you're not going to deprive CJ Gardner-Johnson of snaps to get him. You know what I mean? Like, I think that it sucks, man. The politics of these things sometimes don't work the way you want them to. I thought there was an opportunity to potentially try Sidney Brown out as that +1 run defender as a nickel player, but they had other ideas, guys. That was originally what I was going to present to you today. They traded CJ for guard Kenyon Green. Yeah. What's up, Drew? How you doing, buddy? They want it, like I said, I'm not in the front office, so I don't know the nature of the conversations, guys. Like, I don't know that I could really provide like insight to it. There wasn't anything about CJ Gardner's contract that I saw for this season that would have been of concern. I don't know what it looked like, in the year prior. He likely signed a 3-year contract that was really a 2-year deal, to be quite honest. So I don't know the structure beyond this season, but when I did the cap review a couple weeks ago for you guys, I didn't see anything with his contract that was of concern. So I don't think it was a contractual thing. I think it's just they want to get younger on the defensive side of the ball. They spent the 66th pick on Sidney Brown, and I think sorry, guys, if you got kids, earmuff them for a second, all right? 1, 2, 3, all right, you got them earmuffed. Come hell or high water, they're going to find out if they got players in Sidney Brown and some of these other people. I get you guys questioning, like, man, is this the time to do that? But the thing is, he's going into the third year. They have to know this season about Sydney, right? I think they already they must have thrown the towel in on what they think about. I don't even want to say that because it could be too early to say they throw the towel in there, but we've already relegated one of those guys from that draft class to kind of like the sixth man off the bench. And yet they're going to see what they got in Sydney Brown. I think that's very obvious. I'm so confused right now. I see no direction on defense. We got a Super Bowl defense. Lewis Sign and Sydney Brown will fight for a spot. Yeah, I think that's Andre Sam. I'd probably put in that equation too, Dank. It's going to be interesting, right? Because you went from Sydney Brown being so far out of the playing loop, right? Because of injury. It wasn't because of talent. I think all you guys here, even all you guys here that are really disappointed like me that CJ Gardner-Johnson's gone, I think all of us agree, like, it's not anything against Sydney Brown because Sydney Brown's a tremendous talent. We just don't know. Like, it's the uncertainty of not knowing if Sydney Brown's one of those guys when it comes to playing ball. We know he's a hell of an athlete. Like, we know this dude is athletically gifted. You know, I think they had to. I think the way they looked at it is they got to pull the Band-Aid off and they need to know right now, right? It's the third year of that contract. They're going to work an extension with them. They got to know right now, I guess, is how they're viewing it. Don't overreact. Yeah, it's going to be hard, man. I think we're going to get some overreactions on CJ Gardner-Johnson. Like, yeah, I agree with you. Drew. But yeah. Yeah, I don't like trading him either, Dank. I don't like it either. I mean, I like Sydney Brown. I understand the direction they're trying to take. I'm not going to sit here and act like I wanted to see CJ Gardner-Johnson off the team now. Like, I know that Sydney Brown has got some of those same fire starting capabilities of CJ Gardner-Johnson, but just like CJ Gardner-Johnson had to focus it, and CJ Gardner-Johnson took it too far sometimes. We're going to be saying the same thing about Sydney Brown too. And he's a little bit more, he's not a little bit more inexperienced. He's inexperienced on the field. So, like, that's going to be a thing too. Is like, yeah, you still got a fire starter in Sydney Brown. There's no doubt about that. And he does make plays. That's one thing I will give Sydney Brown is when he touches the field, he does have a tendency to come up with a football. With that said, there's going to be some internal coaching. Some things have to happen internally with the player to get him to bring it down a little bit. The intensity's got to be under, not bring it down. It's got to be under control is what I'm trying to say. That intensity needs to be brought under control with Sydney Brown. I know that dude will definitely get the fire started. I'm not saying that, but yeah. Yeah, Eagles Dynasty, I think that's part of it as well. Sydney Brown, Lewis Seen, and Andre Sam must have something in them. I do think CJ can't cover. I think he's lost a little bit of a step, Mr. Michael, covering out of the slot. Specifically on receivers. I think he still does pretty well against tight ends. But yeah, coming out of the slot against receivers, I do think that he lost a step here and there. I also think that sometimes, as much as I love him, and I didn't want to lose him because he is that fire starter for the defense and he is a playmaker. I do think that sometimes he would be the guilty party in terms of not being where he's supposed to be. And that's what I hate about this. Like I said, guys, I love Vic. I know this scheme, man. If you got the right guy coaching it, it's incredibly difficult to beat as a quarterback. It involves a lot of coaching. This scheme is not for everybody. The faint of heart need not apply. Yeah, Emma Wara in the first round, maybe a trade up. Yeah, hard to say, guys. I'm still working some things out, but yeah. Dante, that's what I'm wondering is, like, where does this leave Tyler Steen? Like, do they really just, like, I definitely think Tyler Steen's going to have a role. I think he's clearly going to be the sixth man on the offensive line, the first off the bench, right? He's going to cover 4 out of the 5 spots probably. Left guard, left tackle, right tackle. He's probably your first guy off the bench. But, yeah, Dante, it's a good point. Like, you're giving Sydney Brown a pathway to playing. There's a pathway. It doesn't mean he got it. I want to make sure I'm being clear about that, guys. It does not mean that Sydney Brown has earned that spot. There's a path to it. Doesn't mean he earned it. But Tyler Steen, I mean, you could make the argument, does he even really have a spot? Does he have a pathway to the right guard position? Thanks, at Brooks. Yeah, Brooks. Yeah. Yeah, he was amazing, man. Yeah, he was one of my favorite. Brandon Brooks was one of my favorite players. What's good, Dante? How you doing, man? Brandon Brooks was a lot better just constantly injured. Yeah, you're right, Daniel. He was injured a lot, especially towards the end of his career. He got injured quite a bit. But yeah, this team is getting younger, and I'm curious about the trades coming up. What's up, Some Black Ninja? He said, hey, Gates, are you concerned about our linebackers and cornerback positions, and why hasn't Becton been signed? Well, Kenyon Green is coming in as the right guard now, so I'm not going to say that they're not going to sign Mekhi Becton because, like, I hate to be proven wrong on that. You know, I'm always a little weary of being a little too certain in what you're saying. You know, sometimes it's best to err on the side of caution, but it does make some sense that with bringing Kenyon Green in to play right guard and Tyler Steen on the roster, like Kenyon Green is a road grading run specialist at the right guard spot. It would be a little repetitive to then add Mekhi Becton with Tyler Steen. Like they're all the same player, right? Mekhi Becton's, jumbo size. Kenyon Green is extra large, I should say. And then Kenyon, and then when, you get to Tyler Steen, then you got the extra large version, basically. But they're all pretty much the same exact player. I mean, it's basically a repeat of the same player. It's going to be interesting, man, because Mekhi Becton was a very good signing last year. He was a hell of a signing. Not very good in pass protection, I'm not going to lie, but yeah. What's up, Ben? How you doing, buddy? This is a reminder to the Eagles, never get attached to these players. They are cogs to be moved and replaced to keep the machine going. Yeah, I'm a little surprised at C.J. Gardner-Johnson, though, because it just seemed like his role was so defined. Like, that one caught me a little off guard. But you're right. I mean, Reggie White didn't end his career here. Different ownership. Different reasoning. Milton Williams fits every bit of the protocol to be a Philadelphia Eagle on his second contract, but, they have so many decisions to make, and they have so much youth on the interior D line that he just became expendable, even though he's a heck of a player. But any other situation, any other circumstance, that guy would have got a second contract here. But yeah, I mean, you're right. Circumstance, there's a lot going on, right? Like, they're kind of telling you who the staples of the team are. I know some of you are like, dude, Gate, I would have thought that C.J. Gardner-Johnson was one of the staples. Yeah, I hear you. He's not, though. They're telling you he's not. You know what I mean? So if I had to write it down right now, I mean, it seems like A.J. Brown, Devontae, Lane, our guy Lane Johnson. We know Mulata. He's one of the staples on this team. Landon is one of the staples on this team. Saquon is one of the staples. I think that's pretty much it offensively, I would say, is a staple of the team. If I'm missing somebody, I don't know if I would consider Goddard a staple anymore, but Goddard is part of a big reason the offense functions. I'm not in favor of trading Goddard, to be honest. But I don't know if I call him a staple at this point. Defensively, damn, I'm trying to think, guys. Who would be our staples defensively? I mean, Jalen Carter is the obvious one. I guess Nolan Smith, we could say, is a staple defensively. Quinyon. So we'll say Q. We'll say Coop. Coop's definitely a staple. I don't know if I would say Reed Blankenship. Am I tripping? I think Reed Blankenship's a great player, man. I like him. I think he's a good player. I think he's a little limited. I worry about him covering, like when they were playing him as a free and he had to cover those crossing routes and stuff like that, and he had to carry with him. I was a little concerned with him. But, kind of playing more of that match zone stuff, he was a little bit more effective, especially playing on the strong side of the defense. I don't know if I would call him a staple of the defense, though. I'm missing somebody. Bond. Yeah, I'd say Bond at this point is definitely a staple for at least the next couple of years. So the only staples I got, I guess Nakobe, you could kind of say. I think Nakobe is a staple, but I do worry coming back from an injury. Nakobe's injury history does make me a little weary. He's a great player. Nakobe is definitely one of those dudes, man. But I got AJ Devontae, Lane Johnson, Mulata, Landon Dickerson, and Saquon on the offense, the staples. And I got Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Q, Coop, Bond, and Nakobe, the staples on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they told us a few things about a few players that they said they're great players or good players. In a perfect world, we would have liked to have them back, but they didn't view them as staples. Yeah. Any offensive line moves had to have been run by Stoutland. I trust his judgment. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and say that Kenyon Green's not a good player. He's a good player. He is. I hate we lost, C.J. Gardner-Johnson to get the deal done, but I'm still enthusiastic about Kenyon Green just absolutely bulldozing people. And they got cost effective. That's what, if you really want to get technical, guys, what just happened with Kenyon Green? Kenyon Green was drafted, what was that, 22, guys? Was he drafted? Hang on. Let me take a look, guys. 22, first round pick, 22, 23, 24. So they got this year, and then they have a option if they would like to pick up I don't know if the option was picked up because I think it had to be declared this season. So the potential of the option being picked up on his contract, but that would technically be Houston. They got cost effective this season. That's what happened, at least. At least we can say they got cost effective at right guard is really what happened there. Lost Milton Sweat, Slay, Rodgers, CJ, Burks, Dean, injured. Are we in trouble defensively? If they had the lineup right now, Antonio, of course. If they had the lineup right now with what we have, yeah, we definitely, like, the depth at defensive end would be catastrophic. Like, that would be a huge problem. I'm pretty high on our interior D line, but I will say this, Antonio. Remember, everyone was arguing about whether or not what we should do with the option, on Jordan Davis. I don't know that they're going to pick the option up. I would think they're going to refuse it and then work. If he shows he's got something, maybe you work something out with him in season to get him an extension. You don't necessarily need the 5th-year option to do that. Jordan Davis's development, along with Moro Ojomo, that's important. Those two dudes gotta bring it. Look, Ojomo brought it last year. He showed real signs. In the playoffs, I thought Jordan Davis was kind of starting to show a little bit. Conditioning's got to be better. JD's got to give us a good 20 snaps a game, man. We can't be meddling around with these 8 to 12 snaps. That's not going to get it done. He's got to be 20 to 30 snaps a game. 20 on the low end, 30 on the high end. I think you got something there. It is what it is, guys. I ain't in the front office, man. DeJean has said he doesn't want to move to the outside, and I think he is more valuable in the nickel. He is more valuable in the nickel, Chris, but I can tell you that that's not true about him not wanting to move to the outside. Yes, he does. That is a very false statement, Chris. You got to understand the way pay works. You don't get paid the same way from the nickel that you get paid on the outside. I promise you that man's agent and himself eventually want to be classified as an outside corner because it is substantially more money when he comes up for his contract extension. I wouldn't say that. I hate this trade. When did DeJean say he wanted to move outside? That sounds like BS. It's not about wanting to, EV. It's about the fact that you might need him to. DeJean's already stated several times he'll go where the team needs him, right? When they asked him before about playing safety, about playing nickel, about playing outside, he stated several times, I'll play where I'm needed. Like, I can tell you from a contractual standpoint, just like I was telling, I think it was Chris before, you want to be on the outside. You do not want to be locked up as a nickel if you're this type of player, because it will affect your AAV when you go for your contract extension. Nickels do not get paid at the rate that you do as an outside player. Now, does that mean, like, there's different ways of getting to this, right? Going in, the 20, 30% of snaps were in base. Do they play him outside? And then when he goes into sub package, they move him into nickel. Then you bring a guy like Kaylee Ringo outside. Yeah, I mean, that could be possibly done. Do they keep Cooper DeJean out there and they get Kaylee Ringo to compete with another guy, Christian Fulton, another veteran player? They bring in a young vet, or they bring in a veteran, a true veteran, to let him compete for that spot. Sure. It's, earlier on, what I was saying is that Sidney Brown would have made a lot of sense as a +1 defender. You got a lot to learn. You got to learn the calls. You got to be in the right spot in the system. But athletically, the athleticism there's not many people that can do what Coop and can do what Sidney Brown can do. Those two guys in particular are absolute force defenders. Yep, Sidney Brown time. Yeah, that's what it's looking like, guys. Matt, I don't work for him, brother. I don't work for him, man. Yeah, I don't want DeJean to leave the nickel, so as long as this doesn't hurt, that I don't mind. I think it actually helps it. I think it helps keep him in the nickel, Daniel, to be honest with you, because I think one of the obvious candidates to have replaced him would have been Sidney Brown, right? He played some slot his rookie season. Didn't get a chance to really get worked into the rotation with Vic Fangio last year. is a guy that has very similar movement skills to Cooper DeJean. He doesn't have the ability to diagnose zone the same way DeJean does, and there's got to be a growth curve there, a dramatic one to be fair about it. But when you talk about force players, +1 in the box, not a lot of dudes that can do what like Sidney Brown and like what Coop can do. Those dudes are different. They're different type of dudes, man. And Sidney did a lot of that in college, by the way, at Illinois. He was definitely a +1 in the box kind of player there. So, I mean, like, he would have been natural there, but I do think that trading CJ Gardner-Johnson, you're probably looking at Sidney Brown playing over the top of the defense now. So I think that probably decreases the likelihood unless, like I said, guys, I mean, there's always a workaround. The workaround being in base, they play DeJean outside. Because if you look at it this way, you're saying like, oh, I don't want DeJean, to move, whatever. Well, if you want DeJean on the field for pretty much every defensive snap, then you probably want him playing outside in base and then inside in sub packages. That's kind of the workaround to it. A few nickel corners can take on Derrick Henry like DeJean. He's a great nickel corner. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, Eagles Dynasty. That's what made like Sidney Brown. That's what I was saying about Sidney Brown, is that physicality, that ability from the type of frames that they have. And mind you, they're very different frames. Like Sidney Brown's a little bit more, what's the right way of saying it? I'm trying to think of the right way of saying it, guys. He's shorter, a little bit more, the stature's different, right? A little bit more condensed with that muscle tone, right? Coop's a little taller, bigger guy though. A little bit more of that, hard neck. He's gonna go in there. He's gonna play hard. He's gonna play tough, bro. Yeah, it is tough. It's tough to find those type of guys, and that's what I'm saying. Like even when I gave you the name I gave you from the draft, and I said, look, I was watching this film. You routed me a ton of Isaiah Rodgers. If you want a third outside corner, someone that can be like a guy that you could plug and play on the outside, but also has the movement skills to cover from the inside. He's twitchy like that. He shows some ability to play through traffic. We talked about that earlier, that like, he's a guy that I think is a really good player, which is Jacob Parrish coming out of Kansas State. But to your point, when you get down to being a +1 defender in the box, yeah. Of those worried about DF, that is fair, but it should be mentioned that DF consistently is nearly impossible to replicate. I like our coaching staff's ability to develop players. Yeah. Our whole secondary is going to look different. Yeah, I mean, one of the plus sides is if you look at this naturally, right? If the plan is, I'm making an assumption, Melly. Just know I'm making an assumption here. But if the plan is to play Cooper DeJean every snap, just like Quinyon. So in base, he's going to be outside. In sub packages, so nickel, dime, stuff like that, he's going to play inside as your nickel defender. Well, then, like with this, DeJean's on the field. DeJean's on the field now, no doubt about it, right? Kaylee Ringo, I think the athletic tools are there. Listen, I know A.J. Brown is not the arbiter of everything with football. I get it. That dude is good. A.J. Brown is a really good receiver. And when A.J. Brown signs off on a guy like Kaylee Ringo and says, he's going to be good. He was 20 years old when we drafted him, guys. 20 freaking years old. All right? I'll be 42 this year. If I could, Jesus, the amount I didn't know, not only about football, but just about life at 20 years old, the amount of idiocy that was in me at 20 years old. Like, this young man has had a couple of years to mature, both from the mindset to the physical body. And he already came in pretty gifted, guys. I mean, the dude, he's not a little guy. Matt said, did Vic approve it? I don't know, man. I can't say one way or the other, man. I don't know if Vic did or didn't. Only way to know is to be in the room. Vic may have had reservations about it, but it just depends upon the contract and the numbers. And like, there's some element here we're missing. Obviously, there's an element we're missing. Only issue I got is going to be communication issues. Yeah, Daniel, that's the problem with the system, with Vic's system in particular. Cheaper to replace a safety than a quality right guard. Cheaper. Depends on the market which you're looking at, Bobby. I mean, top end of the market, safeties are getting roughly around $20 million a year now. But I get your point. What was that guy's name, Bobby? They just signed. What did he sign with? Chicago, was it, or was it Minnesota? One of the NFC North teams just signed a guard to like a $80-some million contract. So. The Eagles' average defensive back is too young to buy beer. I get your point, Eagles dynasty. I don't know if that's true. I think they're all above age now. But yes, they're very young. Bobby said, yeah, the money guards were getting yesterday was pretty big. Yeah, that's one of my hunches, is that the numbers that must have been coming back on Mekhi Becton. I don't think the Eagles make this type of move unless they knew Mekhi Becton was a reach to get. The question's going to be, does Mekhi Becton, is he a week 2 guy in terms of free agency? Week 1 impacts your compensatory pick status. Week 2 does not. Yeah, I don't know, guys. We'll see, man. Could you see them move back out of the first round, or maybe take Starks from Georgia and have a camp battle for the starting spot? Can I see them moving back out of the first round? Yes, if there's a trading partner. It takes 2 to tango. You know what I mean? Like, there's got to be something on the board that another team wants enough to move up for it. But hard to say, guys. I can't say exactly. Wow, pick up a good guard. Yeah, it's what it looks like, guys. It looks like Becton's moving on. I'm going to call Vic Smack. You can copy trade style, you can copy the format, but you can't copy respect. Yeah, it's Fangio's system's tough, man. I'm telling you guys, I've had the opportunity twice to try to coach within it. Both times, man, I was just like, this is impossible. This is impossible to teach these young kids. It's too much to learn where they're supposed to be with the match and carry. To be honest with you guys, they're different. So when you talk about these 2 high systems, the popular systems are what Vic does. Another system that's commonly used is single high, and a lot of these have safety rotation, so they may start single high, they don't finish that way. But another common one is the Nick Saban system, which then comes down to like Jeremy Pruitt used it in Tennessee for a while. Kirby Smart uses a variation of it in Georgia. And you have to know if they're playing off. You have to know if they're playing more of a man concept within this scheme. The nickel there it's so different, guys. Like, I could do an entire coaching clinic on it, and you guys would see really quickly, like, yeah, like, leave that stuff to people like Vic, because you just don't want anybody out there trying to explain all that crap to kids. It's tough, man. I'm not a fan of that. I like my guys to not have to overthink things. Like, I'd rather work on athleticism. Now, there's some guys, like, athleticism it's on a scale. I can make a guy more athletic with time, but at no point is a dude going to turn into, Lamar Jackson that wasn't already having that inside of them. I can't take just anybody and turn them into Lamar Jackson level athlete, right? Fields. I can't take anyone and turn them into that kind of, you know what I mean? Like, you look at like a different style of athlete from the quarterback position, if you will. Jalen, the ability to squat and do the strong, the lower body muscle that he has there. You take a look at a guy like Josh Allen. Like, I can make guys trend in that direction, but I can't make them then. Like, there's an inherent athleticism. There's, you know what I mean? Like, there's a line of demarcation to where, you know what I mean? Either that person is that kind of athlete or they're not. Yeah, Brent. Yeah, he's gone, bro. Yeah. Lewis Seen is a 4.39 guy with 11 foot 1 inch long jump. Yeah, they're athletic as crap, DJ. That's what I was trying to tell people. Like, I didn't want to lose. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I wanted to lose CJ Gardner-Johnson, like, because y'all will be pulling videos on me all day, being like, "Yeah, you lying like a mother." Right now, we got videos for days. I know. I was a huge CJ Gardner-Johnson stan, but I am gonna say Quinyon, Cooper DeJean, Sidney Brown, Kaylee Ringo, Lewis Seen, Andre Sam. They're athletic as crap. They are very athletic back there. Can they play? I don't know. You know what I mean, DJ? That's what we're waiting to see, man. Hard to say. Matt says, I just can't understand how this is a good move for the defense. I get the value, but I just don't get the trust, the hype around Cindy and Scene. Guess they know something we don't. I mean, they do. They definitely know more about the players than we do, Matt, to be honest, because they're in the building with them 24/7. So, I mean, they get to see every practice rep. They get access to information we're just not privy to be honest. With that said, I think it has more so to do with the fact that they have to get younger. They have to be more cost effective. And I think they have to figure out who the pieces are going forward for the defense. And the fact that Sidney Brown is coming up on his third year, it's kind of a make or break year for him in terms of the evaluation going forward. Do you pay that guy another contract? Does he even have it in him? Like, I think they're looking at it. CJ Gardner-Johnson, they would have gotten 1 year out of. Sidney Brown, they're going to get at least 2 years out of him, potentially more. I can understand your argument, Matt, to say, but Gate, if you say that, then how the hell are you explaining the whole situation with Tyler Steen? Like, they decided to move off Mekhi Becton, potentially, possibly, to trade CJ Gardner-Johnson to get Kenyon Green to play right guard when they drafted Tyler Steen a pick ahead of Sidney Brown in the same draft. And it's like, I don't know. I don't have the explanation. I don't work in the front office. I don't know why Sidney Brown was viewed one way that Tyler Steen clearly wasn't. I think they both clearly have a role on the team. I think Sidney Brown's path towards a starting role is a heck of a lot clearer than the path that Tyler Steen has towards a starting role here. I think Tyler Steen's role is more of the sixth man off the bench for the offensive line. He's the main guy up for 4 out of the 5 alignments along that offensive line. I don't know. I don't know that I have explanations, guys. I don't even know if I really want to try to provide an explanation because, like, it just, I don't think they're cooked because they made the deal. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson was a fire starter for the defense. I think Sidney Brown has that same characteristic, but CJ Gardner-Johnson's had more time to mature. Sidney Brown needs to mature in the role. He goes off the rails too as a fire starter. Sometimes you got to reel these dudes back. I thought that CJ Gardner-Johnson, he hurt us in the Washington game. He let it go too far. But I think for the whole body of work for the season, I thought CJ Gardner-Johnson was showing leadership skills in that area. Yes, he let a situation get to him that went too far. I still don't agree with what happened. I think they went too far with booting him from the game for that. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. It's the youth movement. We're getting younger. We're athletic as crap. Can they play? To be determined. Howie's either going to look like a genius. This is the thing I'm being careful about, guys. Because if we sit here and we berate Howie, and these dudes turn out to be able to play, and it's Vic just got the magic touch. Oh, sorry, guys. If Vic just has the magic touch, and Sidney Brown and Kaylee Ringo and Cooper DeJean and Quinyon, and these dudes they formed the nucleus with Reed Blankenship to have this super athletic and gifted secondary with maybe a Lewis Cine or Andre Sam being the main backup on the safety spot. Eli Ricks or someone's being the main backup at the corner spot. I don't know what they do. I mean, they got to figure out some answers here in terms of the nickel because, Coop there needs to be an answer behind Coop. Maybe AJ Woods. He's a guy that I kind of like when they made the signing there. Maybe he could get involved a little bit. Maybe he could be a practice squad kind of call up guy, or maybe he makes the back end of a 53. He could be one of those situations. I don't know. We'll see, guys. Yeah, defense needs to read and react to a great athlete is ideal, but if he can't be where he's supposed to be, that's hard for a defensive coordinator to navigate around. 1,000% correct, DJ. That's with Sidney Brown. I think he's the same kind of force impact player at the line of scrimmage as a +1 defender that Cooper DeJean is. I think those two guys are rare. I think it's hard to find these type of dudes. But if I'm being real, processing the defense, processing the calls, knowing where to be. And now, Sidney Brown, I was talking about nickel. Now you're too high structure. You still got to play the slot. He still has to play the slot. So on occasion, he will, I know that you can make the argument, well, Reed will probably be the guy who picks up the slot a little bit more often. You're still going to play the slot, even as a free. I mean, there's going to be some times you got to play the slot. We definitely thrive with tackling cornerbacks, especially within the slot. Yeah, Dank, I agree with you. I don't like to trade either, but What can you do? Fangio's defense requires players with high football IQ, not just athleticism. You need both. Don't get it twisted, Chris. You need both. If you think about it, the Eagles are set up like the 49ers teams the past few years with some great star players. The difference is Howie has been accumulating picks to keep the roster young. So it's a player and pick swap. Yeah, Lewis Cines an interesting guy, Xavier. The athleticism there, same thing we said about Sidney Brown, very athletically gifted guy. Yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of his football IQ there. Difference in schemes he's coming to. Yeah. Cines' athleticism is intriguing. Yeah. What, do blood clot? Yeah. Feels like we're clotting right now, man. I like the kid. Worf. One word, Worf. Mistakes were made. I think this means Slay is coming back also. Interesting take. Bobby, you could be right. I'm being a little I'm beating around the bush on Slay because he has not been officially released. Yeah. There's an entire 24-hour period right now where something can get worked out before it's officially exited. They cannot technically release him with a June 1st designation until the league year starts tomorrow. Drew said, I told myself not to care. I don't feel for these players. Here I am again. Laugh out loud. Yeah, it is what it is, man. They are for 26, Drew. I was blown away at that one. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming either, Trill. I'm not going to lie. I didn't see that one coming. Another student for Stout University, at least. Yeah. The toughest thing to navigate for the secondary is deciding where to play DeJean. He's a great slot cornerback, but he could make more money playing us. Exactly. I don't want to have contract issues later. And we will definitely have contract issues if they continue to play him in the slot because he's going to want the top of the market on the outside cornerback. Yeah, I think they have to find a way of getting him to play a little bit on the outside. And I think DJ, the one way you can make it is like in base, he plays outside. And then when they go into their sub packages, he kicks inside. And you can say like, well, it makes sense to pay him that kind of money. Yeah. Bobby said not paying Burks is what didn't make sense to me yesterday. Yeah, I thought that to me, the two that I felt pretty confident were coming back were Orion Burks. And I thought that there would be an avenue coming back towards Isaiah Rodgers. I'm shocked both of these dudes got day one contracts. I thought there was an opportunity to get those guys back next week. And that didn't work out. Kind of missed on that one, Bobby. I definitely missed on that one. Or Trotter Jr. is ready to go. They do have the same body type and skill set. Trot Jr. is a good player. We'll see. I mean, Kyle's smart guy. You talk about the intelligence aspect of it. I mean, it doesn't hurt when your dad's Trotter. Clearly knows the position. They also have Quinyon's teammate. Quinyon Mitchell's teammate is out there, Gant. Gant's out there too. Very similar body style to Trot Jr. Fast, really fast kid. I mean, super, super fast. We'll see. Linebacker is an interesting one. Either they really think Nakobe Dean's coming back sooner than people think, or like you said, they have a ton of trust in Trot Jr. to get the job done. Sid got cooked in the Super Bowl. Laugh out loud. You can't take a one-game sample size, man. Chris, you're trying to use a one-game sample size on a guy that didn't get really put into the rotation. Love your takes. Appreciate it, man. This is proof the salary cap exists to me, and I'm expecting Dallas to go next. This explains the Lewis Cine pickup as well. Sign, isn't it Sign? I think I keep saying Scene. I think his name's Sign. They just signed CJ to that 3-year deal. Feel for him. Yeah. My gut instinct, Drew, is one of those contracts where it was really a 2-year deal that they put out for a 3-year. So they gave up on a season earlier. Yeah, I would have liked to add CJ Gardner-Johnson here. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, Ringo and Brown are going to get their chances to start after sitting on the bench for a couple of years. That's what it looks like, man. Vikings 2022 first round pick, safety Lewis Seen, another Bulldog. Another one for the collection. But I thought Tyler Steen was looking good unless Steen wasn't. Yeah, I don't know how they graded him in the offseason. You know, they're going over tape on everything now, Green Wingman. My evaluation of him is that he struggled in pass protection. Can say that for everyone who played right guard for them last year. Was pretty good in the run game. He's, you know, when you talk about Mekhi Becton, you talk about Kenyon Green, you talk about Tyler Steen, I think you're talking about road graders in the run game that are physical and move you off the ball, but leave something desired in pass protection. That's my read on all three of those guys. Like I said, Mekhi Becton, super sized. You know what I mean? You get the Kenyon Green, that's your extra large. And then you get to Tyler Steen, that was your extra large. I mean, they're all three of those dudes they were big guys. Like these are big road graders, kind of that's the style that they play. But yeah, I mean, I don't make the decisions, unfortunately. CJ runs his mouth too much, most likely got himself in trouble with someone. Maybe you have been a group of people made him expendable. I don't know about all that, guys. I don't know. You know, I haven't heard anything in terms of a report or anything, so I don't know. Rumor I heard was CJ wanted more money, but who knows what happened. Yeah, Bobby, I mean, that's could potentially be the situation. These defense going to be so young. Can't wait. Also, people give a like to my man Gate City for his time. Appreciate you guys. CJ GJ was a part of two of them as well. Yeah, he was. When Dean got injured, Fangio said in an interview that Trot has a bright future. We know Fangio's word should be taken at face value. Yeah, I mean, they clearly have to an extent, J.A. I mean, we don't know the full extent, but to an extent, there has to be some level of trust in Trot. I didn't realize I made the Stout University reference twice. That's all good. I mean, there's truth to it, right? Stout does a pretty good job developing these guys and getting them paid. He gets dudes money. Got to remember how he said he likes to think about moves 3 years in advance as well. Yeah, cap implications, things like that. We'll be lucky to have a top 10 defense next year, especially with the hardest rated schedule next year. Checking my head. Maybe, Chris. I mean, I think it's a little bit of an overreaction at this point, guys. I mean, you could be right, Chris. I mean, but I still think that you got to give the chance for these young guys to prove that they can play ball. They haven't had a chance to be worked in through an entire offseason and given that opportunity to gel as one unit. That's the part that everybody keeps leaving out. It really comes down to gelling as a unit. Can they gel as a unit? That's going to make the difference. If they don't gel as a unit, everyone's playing individual ball out there, it's going to be a problem. If they gel as a unit, it's probably going to be better than what a lot of guys think right now. You know, I know I'm giving you a lot of coach speak, but I'm just telling you the truth. I mean, it's truth. It's truthful. These are cat moves to an extent. To an extent. I think it's more so, Chris, to kind of explain what he's trying to say when he says it's cap moves. I don't think he's referring to the cap savings they're getting this season, Chris. He's referring to the fact that you have players that you have to make decisions on, and you have guys you have to get on their contract in the near future to where they're going to be up for deals. And then to add to that, if there is the complexity that CJ Gardner-Johnson was looking for a new deal, and I don't know that. Chris, I don't know, but there's some people I see it on the internet now to where there are some people reporting that he wanted to a rework deal again. So I don't know, guys. So I think that's what he's alluding to. Y'all relax. It's only March. Yeah, not just this year, next year. Exactly, yeah. They really didn't like Green from what I've heard. Every system's different, guys. You got to keep in mind. See, Quentin, the thing is every system's different and the situations aren't similar. Playing on the Eagles offensive line compared to playing on the Texans offensive line are two completely different things. Like, he's going to be in a far better situation when he looks to his right and Lane Johnson's there. Like, I'm sorry. I know that you can make some nuanced arguments to say that, look, hey, man, you know, I like Cam. I'm worried about the injury, and I still think that man's got some growth to go through in his own game, but Cam Jurgens has still got upside. And then you got Landon Dickerson on your left guard. You got, you know what I'm saying, Mulata. It's a different situation, Quentin. It's a different situation. I like Brown if he learned the defense over the last year, and now this offseason, I think he could be an improvement over CJ in that spot. If not, how he looks like he might go D-back heavy in the draft. The fans calling him a bust and stuff. Yeah, it's a little. I mean, fans say a lot of things though, Quentin. You know how that stuff goes, man. Fans say, I mean, come on, man. Even our own fan base. I mean, come on, bro. It wasn't that long ago they were calling Nolan Smith a bust. I remember all that crap. People like me who had positive videos about Nolan Smith, like we were dealing with a lot of crap. And then a lot of those people got real quiet when he started breaking out. I don't hear from them no more. They definitely disappeared on me. I'm going to have to send a search party to find some of them. I do like CJ. Yeah, same thing, Dank. I hate it was at the expense of CJ. I like the player they got. I mean, I think that there's upside to getting this player and Kenyon Green. I do think there was upside there. But I hate that it was at the expense of CJ Gardner-Johnson, but I don't know the inner workings of what happened. However, he did allow a good amount of touchdowns in the red zone. Yeah, some miscommunications in terms of where he's supposed to pick up in terms of coverage. Yeah, that did happen. I agree with you. Not saying that Sidney Brown will have the same problem. They're both a little bit of a gambler in the ball in the air. That's, if you got a guy with good ball skills, guess what? They're going to take gambles at the ball. You know how they are. Those dudes always do that. Quentin, yeah. Carter going to get a big bet. Yeah, it's going to be. I heard someone say 30 million. We'll see. Might be more than that. 5th and 6th round pick spot. I figured there was probably something else to the deal. Appreciate you guys telling me what the deal was. I was saying, like, there has to be something to it. It's very rare that it's just a player for player. They normally add some kind of a weird pick swap to those deals. But yeah, it was Green in a 2026 6 for CJ and a 2026 6. Okay. Sidney Brown is a liability. Well, I mean, he hasn't really got an opportunity to play yet, that damn Davis boy. I mean, he's got to get an opportunity to play. I think the underlying athletic traits are there. Now, can he process the defense? Don't know. I mean, you got to remember, he was a rookie the last time we really saw him out there with significant snaps on a very ineffective defense. Like, no matter if we take if there's a regression and a step back, I know you probably agree with me that it's not going to be to what it was in 23. It's, probably be a situation where we're hovering around top 10, but it ain't the best defense in the league anymore. Like, I don't think it's going to be that crazy of a step backwards. You know what I mean? Like, I don't anticipate it being like falling off the cliff bad. Now, to me, getting pass rushers, you've got to get edge players. I really like Nolan Smith, and I think Nolan Smith he's starting to turn into that dude. Oh man, the young man from last year, boy, they pulled that 3rd round pick. That was pulling a cat out of a hat, bro. That was insane. Like, rabbit out of a hat, not a cat. Yeah, I mean, you look at Jalix Hunt, you look at Nolan Smith, the future's bright. I still think you need bodies there. Like, there definitely needs to still be bodies there. And that's where I think you'll see after the first week. I think that's where you're going to see some signings happen, guys, is along that defensive line, it's particularly the edges. And I think the draft, I definitely think you're going to, and maybe they wait to see what the results of the draft are, and then they circle back to making those type of plays for what they're going to do in terms of building the squad for the 25 season. But yes, the pass rush in particular to me is the area where we got to find depth and quality depth. I don't think that you need star players, but you need quality depth players, guys that, can play a role. Eagles get a 2026 5th round pick, and the Texans get a 2026 6th rounder. It's a pick swap. Yeah, I figured there was something going on, guys. Normally there is a pick swap to that type of move. Dang City, read it wrong. Thanks, says I don't think it was a good or a bad move. Just a move. Yeah, like I said, I hate that we lost CJ Gardner-Johnson. I just like the fit for the city. I like the player personally. I was a little bit of a stan. I was a little bit of a fanboy. But yeah, I mean, like, I kind of agree with you, Dank. I'm in the middle to where it's like, it's one of those things that it could be a really good move or it could be a really bad move. And the only way that we'll know this is the way that Sidney Brown and Kaylee Ringo and these guys play. They'll be the determining factors, right? Loisine, those young men will be the determining factors. Because if they pick up the slack and they're good players and they just needed an opportunity to get on the field, then Howie's going to look like a genius. If we fall on her face and it ain't good, then yeah, you're right. It's going to look bad. It's going to look really bad. Youth movement in full effect now. Howie better be right. It's definitely the youth movement. It has to be something locker room related, or maybe they think the young guys can hold it down. So Quentin, I was seeing some comments online now where they were saying that I guess he wanted a restructured contract to get more money. DJ said Drew Rosenhaus might retire after the commission check from the Jalen Carter contract. Laugh out loud. Yo, yeah. Yeah, DJ. He says HE double hockey sticks. Good morning, Coach. What's up, Joe? I'm shocked like everyone else, but I have to give Howie the opportunity to do what Howie does. 3 Super Bowls, 2 Super Bowl championships. I have to give him time. Yeah, same thing, Joe. Like it caught me like, dude, when people first put it in the chat, with like, I just started this thing and people were putting it in the chat and I was like, man, stop playing with me. And I Googled it and I was like, oh man, no, this just broke. Like they're not playing. This just happened as we hit the live button. Laugh aloud. That is an earmuff moment. Man, I might be a bad parent. Yeah, Drew, I say a lot worse in front of my kids as well, but you know, I know some parents that they don't curse around the kids at all, so I wanted to make sure that I kept it clean for them. No direction is March 11th. Sweat, Milton, and Slay were expected losses. The other ones I don't get. I'm sure there is a plan because you don't make this move if there isn't one, but doesn't change the hurt. Yeah, that's true, Drew. That's very true. Yeah, I'm trying to be careful because I know some people are not really expressing like well thought out emotional responses here. They're reacting in the moment. And I've learned because I'm being recorded to be very careful what you say in the moment. So like that's why I'm a little bit more like, yeah, it hurts to lose CJ Gardner-Johnson. I'm happy for Sidney Brown and the opportunity he's going to get, but man, yeah, I like CJ Gardner-Johnson a lot. I did. The plan is youth. Yeah, I definitely think that's the plan. Sorry, man. It's the chat's locking up on me now. Can this thing? There we go. The plan is youth. Yeah, exactly. Sweet Chen music. I agree with you, man. It's definitely a youth movement. Hopefully it works, but either way, it's hard not to see the defense taking a step back next season. I think in an idealized situation, Sweet Chin music, your defense takes a small step backwards early on in the year when you're working out the kinks. And then by late season, the talent is showing up, right? These guys are getting more experience. They're starting to trust their eyes more. They're starting to understand the scheme more, and they're starting to make plays. I mean, that's what you hope for, is that you get an initial step back to eventually take a giant step forward if you're lucky. Now, I think the difficulty is this. How much more giant can the step be compared to what we got last year? That's the tough part, right? I think we could be better from the edge rushing perspective of things. I do think that there were times to where the edge rush kind of got stifled a little bit in season. But with that said, like, yeah, that is tough, man. It's like, how much further of a step can you take? That defense was pretty good last year. So yeah, I think you're right. I mean, my thing is like, can you keep it top 10? If you can keep it around the top 10, top 12 clubs, you got a shot. This team's going to be good enough. It's super talented. It's super young. It's got a veteran leadership in terms of the coaching staff. Like that's why I'm a little bit more optimistic, to be honest, Sweet Chin, is the fact that I trust Vic, I trust Joe Casper, and I trust Christian Parker. I trust those 3 guys a lot. I think those dudes deserve a lot of credit. I think they're very good coaches. I think that, you know, even along the defensive line, right, with Clinton Hurt and Jeremiah Washburn, the young man that Nick Sirianni brought over from the Titans that he knew, that coaches our linebackers. I keep calling him a young man. We're probably about the same age. Whatever his name is. You know what I'm talking about, guys. Our linebacker coach. Like, we're doing good. Like, our coaching staff is solid, man. If the coaches believe that these youngsters aren't that big of a drop-off in productivity, then Howie will weigh the pros and cons. Yeah, that's the part we don't know, DJ. Like, I'm not in a room. You know what I mean? I'm not in that room, so I have no clue what the heck that conversation was. Yeah, Mike. That's the takeaway I got to. Is that I guess the cause and effect here is you got to get younger because you can't pay everybody. Yeah. Did we trade Dallas? You talking Dallas Goedert? Not that I saw. Let me check for you real quick. I think CJ Gardner-Johnson was the only trade so far, but I know the Rams are supposedly showing interest in him. Yeah, everything I see is just like they're shopping them. Most of these are like team fan boards reporting interest. You got the Chiefs in there talking about hey, we're going to be losing Kelsey. I'm just saying, Goddard. You're getting that kind of stuff. The Rams fan boards, they're posting stuff about saying like, hey, you got Devontae Adams, you got Puka Nacua, then you had a Dallas Goedert, you got a physical receiving staff. Yeah, but I mean, you're also got guys that all three of them like to play from the slot. I mean, I guess it is what it is. Malachi Starks is now a possibility with their first pick. I could see that Sweet Chin Music. The thing is like, are they going to trade back? And that's the hard thing that I don't know, because even if the Eagles have interest in trading backwards, like you got to have somebody there that's willing to trade with you. There's got to be someone that somebody covets to move up to 32nd overall for you to move back. And I don't know. I mean, things can change between now and the draft. It doesn't sound like that quarterback is there unless there's like a stupid slide on one of these quarterbacks where one of the top two guys really ends up sliding. I'm not going to say it's not a possibility. Sweet Chin Music, I'm not going to say it's not a possibility, especially if they move backwards into the second. Yeah, I mean, they might be looking for an impact player. It's going to be interesting, man. Trill Will, that would be funny, man. Trill Will says, watch how he brings in Trey Hendrickson and everyone just shuts up. Yeah, I would be pretty quiet then and be like, yeah, nothing really to complain about. I get it. Yeah. What kind of deal is Trey Hendrickson looking for? Have you heard any reported numbers, Trill Will? I got to imagine, because he led the league in sacks last year, didn't he? I'd imagine it's at the top of the market. Be pretty expensive. But to be fair, those numbers, it's all about the contract structure, not the AAV. It's the contract structure. And, when you got an owner like Jeffrey Lurie, I talked about this in my last video. You can guarantee money because, your owner they'll escrow the guaranteed money. Some teams don't have owners that are willing to do that. You can pay a lot of money in terms of a signing bonus and have your owner hand them to them in a cash lump sum and then put dummy years on a contract and spread the hit out. Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I don't know what they're going to do yet. When Becton got injured in the Super Bowl for a few drives, I thought Steen struggled at right guard. Granted, he was facing Chris Jones. Yeah, Chris Jones is kind of a hard person to evaluate against, right, DJ? Like, I wouldn't want to be out there lined up against him. Dude's a beast. Eagles are putting a heavy emphasis on coaching and development moving forward. If you bring in the right talent and coach well, yeah, Green Wing, man, that's what I'm taking away from it as well. I mean, Howie basically was saying that at the press conference. Yeah. I was just thinking the same thing. Bobby said, yeah. Vince is one of the staples. Bond, yeah, Zach Bond. Could there be a surprise Reed extension last year of his deal? This year, I believe, cost less than CJ, leader of the D? Possibly. Yeah, I don't think you're like too far off there, Ty Lee. I mean, that could be a potential possibility. Coop. Yeah, I think I put him down there eventually, guys. I think I said defensively, I said Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith, Quinyon. When I say Q, Cooper DeJean, Bond, and I said N'Kobe. N'Kobe with the injury, though, makes it a little complex to say it, but I think those are the staples as they look at it right now. But yeah. Reed is not a staple if they haven't extended him yet. Yeah, I think he's one of those guys that's in really high consideration. I think they really like him, but I feel the same way, Sweet Chin Music, to where like he's just short of what I would call a staple of the defense. It is a long time from now until the kickoff. By the way, we will see you there, Coach. I appreciate it, Drew. Green 15. All right. I'm cool with most of the moves, but some of these I'm not understanding, but I'm gonna be more patient with Howie. Yeah, their D line's gonna like the edges have got there's gotta be some players at it. We got that kid Ford as well on D line as well, right? Ford. Let me take a look at who you may be thinking. Let me see. I'm scrolling through real quick, guys. Hang on. Let me share my screen. I keep forgetting I can like just share the screen. Okay, let me present. Share screen. I'm going to the Eagles roster for you. There's a couple younger prospects, but you can't like if they win the job, they win the job. But I wouldn't presume to just go into the season with them, assuming they're going to do that. So, mind you, some of these guys, because the league year hasn't officially started, are still on this, technically listed. All right, let me see what we got, guys. Dallas Gant is the young man I was talking about earlier. Kind of built similarly to Jeremiah Trotter. Fast, super fast though, man. He is a really good athlete. He's the he was teammates with Quinion at Toledo, I believe. Brandon Graham, waiting on that news. We don't know. Gabe Hall's a tweener. Is probably going to play more as an interior guy. KJ Henry. KJ Henry is a guy that kind of bounced around. That's what I'm talking about. I wouldn't go in trusting KJ Henry to be a part of your rotation, but I mean, he's a guy with an outside shot to win a spot. Bryce Huff is still technically on the roster, and if he's here, he's going to be on the team. So he would be another guy. Don't know, yeah. I don't know how much I trust that. Mathis. I know he's listed as a linebacker guy, 6'5", 260. This is more of an edge player. Mathis is. Love this kid's upside. Same thing, though. Same thing I said about KJ Henry. Reasons to love him. Reasons to think like, hey, man, I would love to see this young man work his way onto the roster. But the key word is work his way onto the roster. You get what I'm saying, guys? Like, I would not go in expecting this guy to be the dude like that. In my opinion, that would be, oof. That would be a bad take. I've got Nolan Smith. Josh Sweat is gone. Rolling down. That's all I see, guys. Not a lot, guys. Not a lot. Mathis and Henry are the two guys we don't normally hear discussed that often. Howie is gain for young speed in the backfield, and I think it will not hurt as much, if at all. Just need to be healthy. Why would he not want to move to the outside? Yeah, that's where the money is. He's going to, from what I remember, everything that the young man has said is that he's going to play wherever they put him. He'll play wherever they put him, is from what I remember him saying. Silver lining, we got back all the picks we used. DeJean can play anywhere on defense. Gate is right. The pay is different by far. Exactly. It's a really, really different pay structure. Kenyon Green only did 20 reps on the bench press at the combine at 325. He must spend some time in the cafeteria, more time in the cafeteria than the weight room. I'm not going to get involved in that, sir. I don't want that young man getting hostile with me, sir. You played down in the trenches, DJ. I played quarterback. I'm not fit to make that man angry. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to let me work the comments, but it's not wanting to cooperate with me right now. Thank you. Our secondary can't even rent a car. That's funny. 125. Here's the truth. Howie knows he don't need the number one defense to win it all, so he'll make sure we're good enough, but not looking to rebuild the number one defense. It's a fair take. We'll still build a solid defense, just not going to be making any big moves for expensive players this year. Truewill says Steen will start. Green will be death, in my opinion. It's going to look bad, Truewill, don't you think, though, to trade C.J. Gardner-Johnson to acquire the young man in the pick exchange? I'm not saying you're wrong, Truewill. I mean, they ain't got pads on. They're not in camp. But yeah. DJ said that match and carry is similar to playing zone in basketball. The defense has to rotate, but it's harder in football because there's so much field to cover. Exactly, DJ. I hated coaching that. I hated coaching these Fangio and like Saban-esque systems that, guys, these didn't used to exist. Like when I was in the military and I first started coaching football, dude, we were running like variations of the 54 front, like 5-4 fronts. Like it's insane to see how much the game changed in like a 10-year span from when I first started coaching and when I hung it up. It had changed drastically. Like it was insane. And by the way, guys, I almost started coaching baseball again. I was pretty close to coaching at Eastern Guilford, by the way. It was kind of tough for me because one of my daughters is going to be playing at up in High Point softball, and I got to take her up there. So I'm like, it's going to be really difficult for me to be like in 13 places at once. Plus, I got the baby. CJ was solid on both Super Bowl runs. Yeah, he was. Jay said. Now you need Eagles D-line, linebacker, cornerback, and safety. Sydney does miss tackles, seen as a wild card. To be fair, Jay said, as much as I like CJ Gardner-Johnson, if we're going to diss Sydney on that, I got to put CJ in that category too. My man did miss some tackles sometimes, especially early on in the season. Coach, have you seen any rookie corners in the draft? Yes, James. I was talking earlier about this. There's a name I've been watching a little bit of film on, and it's Kansas State University's defensive back, Jacob Parrish. Tested really well. Tested super, super well. Caught my attention by what his number showed at the combine. I'm like, all right, let me go watch this young man's film. Dude reminds me of Isaiah Rodgers. I'm not going to lie, James. I see Isaiah Rodgers when I watch this film. Super twitchy, super fast, can play on the outside. Has all the movement ability to play nickel. I'm going to tell you, if you remember a really young, I know people are like, dang, Gay, not this player, but I'm talking about a young Avonte Maddox. You remember how twitchy Avonte used to be when he was young? Isaiah Rodgers, when I watched this film, that's the first, I was like, whoa, man, dude's twitchy. Like, he's got that kind of like ability where he's kind of I would call him a defensive back. He can play outside. He can play the nickel. He can probably play above the top of a defense as like a free if you needed him to. As like a center fielder type. Like, he could do all those things, but yeah, I'm still going through some of it, guys. Oh, Green Wing, man, I apologize, buddy. I just noticed that, man. Green Wing with the $5 super chat. Appreciate that, buddy. Says, reminder to people in the chat, please like and subscribe. Appreciate you, buddy. Your thoughts on Walter Nolan? He's going to be a guy that's going to be around the area. I don't know if he's going to make it all the way down to 32 Green Wing, man, but definitely would be in consideration if he's there, of course. I mean, he's definitely got, let's pull it up. I don't know if I can get to his combine results. Like right now, some of these guys are not pulling. Let me go to, I think I can do a workaround to get there. Give me 1 second, guys. Combine results. I think I can do a workaround. Sometimes they don't list them right away after the combine. It takes a couple of weeks. Sometimes it's more so the issues more so with the system itself. Let me see if I can get a workaround to him. And then that. All right. NFL combine results. Let's go to, player search. Nope, I don't want to add. And we are looking for Walter Nolan. See if they have Walter Nolan stuff up yet. Nope. Let me make sure I spelled it correctly. I'm pretty sure I did because it's a pretty common name. Yep, I spelled it wrong. It's an E, dummy. That was on me, guys. Nope, he's not in the system for that. That sucks. All right, let me see what they got here on it. Walter Nolan. Combine results. All right, I'm going to pull up NFL.com's prospect page on them. Sorry, guys. Let me share. I keep forgetting I can share the screen. My bad, guys. Present. Share screen. All right. Boom. Mississippi. 6'4", 296. 32.5-inch arms, 9.5-inch hands. I'm going to tell you right away what I see here is is a slightly under the average in arm reach and probably wingspan at 32 and a half. Let me take a look at some of his testing numbers. Oh, they did not give us. Did he not test at the combine, guys? He didn't test at the combine, did he? Is he one of these pro day guys who's going to do it at the pro day? I need to watch this tape, guys. I need to go in and see some of his tape. I know I saw a couple of games this year, just watching live, but I need to see some of his tape to get a feel for what he is. So when you got a guy with a 32 and a half inch arm reach, probably a sub 80-inch wingspan, so below 80-inch wingspan, the thing you're going to be cognizant of in this situation, to be honest, is you need to make sure that that young man is engaging correctly with his hips, needs to hit at a 45, right? And hand placement, how he works his hands, those kind of things, especially when we're stacking up against the run. It needs to be solid in the technique, guys. It needs to be on point. I got to watch tape to see that. I will say that I'm like, when you're getting into these Milton Williams and these Javon Hargrave guys, these sub 33 and a half inch arm reach guys, for every Milton Williams, there's a Javon Hargrave. Javon, great pass rusher, not a good run defender. Milton Williams was just, technically sound, very technically sound guy. But yeah, I'd have to see, guys. I gotta look it over. CJ didn't help himself. I hate that now I'm seeing online the narrative that no CJ was the reason we imploded 23, and now we shouldn't act like it happened again. Overreaction Tuesday. Yeah, I don't think CJ wasn't the reason why we imploded. Hey, coach, what about Justin Simmons? Is he a Vic Fangio guy? I don't know. There seemed to be, he was available last year too, and it didn't quite work out with him. I mean, maybe Drew, things could kind of come back around. I mean, he played with him, played for him at least. Didn't he go to Atlanta, I want to say, something like that? How he thinks it's the NBA. We need pass rushers, coach. Yes, we do. Definitely, you have to get D-line heavy in draft. Yeah, absolutely. Coach, the word is that CJ was traded because of non-football issues. Yeah, some of the reports I saw leaking their way out was about him winning a contract extension or more money. I don't know, man. I'm not there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to, I don't want to assume things, but that is what I'm seeing reported. Something happened. Obviously something happened. I mean, he was a good player, and he's good for the team in terms of being that fire starter. So something broke down there. I mean, something had to have occurred. Word from who? How he said, be patient, but do not hate. We still have Slay per Mike Garofalo. Oh, he's coming back, huh? Interesting. Random. I ordered a Super Bowl 59 hoodie February 13th. They told me March 10th a week ago. It's March 11th and no gosh darn hoodie. Yeah, sometimes they're very slow with the shipments and deliveries. Back when I used to do the predictions and I would give people like something off of, NFL.com, a jersey, a hoodie, whatever they wanted. That was part of the problem I was having, is they were really slow with the shipments to people. It would take them like a couple of months to get the merchandise. They gave him permission to seek a trade. They wanted second or third for Hendrickson. He seems to be durable and dominant. What's up, Primetime? How you doing, buddy? How you doing, Steve? It's been a long time, man. Coach, I hope all is well with your child and your family. May God bless you. Hey, appreciate that, Joe. She seems to be doing better on the medication. She's out here yelling and screaming at me now. I gotta pull her formula out here in a minute, get her ready for a feed. They want to cap relief and depth. Malachi at 32, Slay not officially signed. Yeah, I saw that. They can't though. I mean, league year doesn't start until tomorrow, so he's not officially released or signed anywhere. All players on the team are tweeting how he's season at the moment. CJ was 76 overall. PFF Green will be great with Statland. Becton is gone. I'm not worried at all. What's up, Michael? How you doing, buddy? Hamilton can replace CJ. I think they're trying to play the younger guys. My interpretation, Michael, and we'll see. The draft can change a lot of things, right? They already spent the 66 pick, to be fair, on Sidney Brown. He didn't get an opportunity to play much for Fangio because of the injury. He's incredibly gifted. He needs to process the field better, to be honest. I think there's a youth movement. Michael. I think there's an absolute youth movement going on right now. DJ said, football is such a physical and violent game. It's hard to think and brace yourself for impact. Defensive players need to prepare like it's combat. Yeah. Yes, sir. You're not wrong, DJ. Yeah, it's repeated. It's the repeated abuse being hit over and over again, to be honest with you. Some tough dudes that play down in the trenches, man. Got a lot of my respect and admiration because it's different. Football is different in the trenches. It's a very different game than what gets played on the outside, to be quite honest. But yeah, a young D is a cheap D. Yeah. I think they're trying to sub in some athleticism, things like that, guys. Yeah, definitely. All right, guys, I appreciate y'all's time and attention. I'm going to jump off here because I got to get this baby ready to be fed. This took a turn. We kind of talked about what we came in here to talk about, but I didn't foresee the CJ Gardner-Johnson news breaking as I hit the live button. CJ Gardner-Johnson was traded, guys, and the youth movement is on here in Philadelphia. It's going to be interesting, man. You know, as my guy 500, I like to talk to Joel all the time. As Joel always says, it's how he vision, and we're all living in it. And I asked Joel one time, we were talking on the phone, and I asked him, I said, what do you mean by that? And he says, oh, like whether it's good or whether it's bad, it's Howie's vision. Like, you know, Howie's going to do Howie. Like, you know, sometimes he gets it right. Sometimes he gets it wrong. I mean, yeah, I think we're in one of those situations, right? It's Howie's vision. We're all living in it. We're hoping he got it right, but, you know, a lot of time before we line up on the field and take any kind of snap of any real significance. So we'll see how it stays out, how it all works its way out, guys. All right, y'all. Peace. Appreciate you, Joe. I'm out of here, guys.